Hey guys, it's Licious Kid from ClimaxCombo, and today we have a set review for the second Love Live Booster School Idol Festival. Seeing as how on the channel we have a set review for every other Love Live set, and the fact that English is receiving the second booster sometimes around June 2015, and the fact that someone did request for this set review somewhere back in December, today we've decided to do so, so here it is. But before we get started, usually when we do a set review, we use the real cards, kind of like how we do a deck profile. We show you the real cards that we own. But for this one, we're gonna try something different. For this one, I'm gonna be using the internet to assist me in doing the set review, because this way you can read the card effects alongside with us. Because when we use our real cards, you can't really read the cards because most of us here can't read Japanese, and also the fact that the text is probably too small to read anyways from the camera's perspective. So excuse me. This way, you can read the card effects alongside with us, which I think is really nice. If you like how we did the set reviews before, where we used the real cards to explain, then let us know. But if you guys like it like this, where you guys can read the card effects alongside with us, do let us know which one you guys prefer. And also, how we're going to do this set review is first I'm going to explain all the double R's, the good ones, the bad ones, because the double R's, I'm sure as you guys all know, is the highest rarity that you can get. They're usually the best cards and are usually the main reason why you want to invest into a booster is because of the double R's. So, gonna talk about all the double R's first, and then I'm gonna talk about the worthwhile R's, commons, uncommons in the set. Not going to talk about all the cards in the set, because if I did, it would just take far too long, and that's not really necessary. And as you can see, there's already a lot of tabs open, so sit tight. It's probably going to be a pretty long video. So I guess with that out of the way now, we could just get right to it. So first of all, is this Honoka here. 218KRR. What she does is she climax combo Snow Halation, which is the flare trigger right here. What it does is that when you attack with the flare trigger, you can pay cost, which is 1. If you do, until the end of your opponent's next turn, this card gains plus 2k, and the following ability of the character facing opposite of this card gets minus 1 soul. Honestly, this Honoka is pretty bad, like kind of unplayable. First of all, she's an undersized level 2, and her climax combo is very mediocre, very lackluster. All Honoka gets is 2k until the end of your opponent's next turn, and minus 1 soul in front. Doesn't warrant a space in your climax. Doesn't warrant a space in your deck for this climax combo. It's very like who cares if you get this climax combo off. And lastly, it combos with the flare trigger. Flare trigger is not. Flare trigger has definitely been picking up in popularity because the game is more focused around killing your opponent faster than it was before. Definitely a lot more aggressive. The format has definitely become much more aggressive. So flare trigger is not bad because of how the meta is now. But still, if you want to run flare trigger, I wouldn't even consider running level 2. I would just run the flare trigger on its own, because the Honoka's climax combo is very lackluster. Don't bother adding this to your deck because it's not worth it. If you wanted a 2-1-10k, run the Umi from the first booster, the 2-1-8k Umi that gets 500 per rested character. That card is just way better, to be honest, because it can be 10k on offense and defense, and that Umi is just really amazing, so don't bother with Honoka. Next up, the next double R is a 3-2-10k Eddie. She's music and animal. What she does is she heals when she heals on play or via change. And she has another effect of you can pay 2 on attack, and if you do, choose one of your opponent's character in the front row and return it to their hand. This Eddie is a very solid card because she heals, and that alone is very good. And her second effect is definitely not bad. It's a little stock intensive because you do have to pay 2, and you can only target the front row, so you can't target the back row. You can't keep bouncing their assist, but still, it does have its merit. It's still definitely good because the bounce is not situational. You can bounce whenever you want. It's on attack, so you can pay out climaxes, and definitely does have its use. Not going to be used all the time, and you really shouldn't be spamming its second effect because you have to pay 2, and paying 2 on attack it's not the worst, but if you're spamming it, it's going to become very, very intensive on your stock and probably not worth it. But definitely has its uses. You can bounce a level 3 when your opponent is very low on resources, making it more difficult for them to play that level 3. Or you can bounce a level 3 on your opponent's side of the field that doesn't have an on-play effect. Something like the 3-2 Hayate from Nanoha. That's a pretty good target you can bounce to their hand. So situational, and you don't want to be spamming it, but it definitely does have its uses, and it's definitely a very solid card, and you should probably consider running a couple because it's very good. It's a good card. And as you can see, it does have a change, which is this Eddie right here. It's a 2-1 8K common. Music pajamas. They spelled it wrong. Oh well. Your good old standard climax phase change. Climax phase, pay 2, discard 1, and then change into the Eddie. Nothing special here, and honestly, I don't really recommend running the change because the changer herself doesn't do anything, and also like you have to pay 2 and discard 1 for this level 3. This level 3 doesn't really do anything amazing out at level 2. It heals you, but that's all it really does. At level 2, you really don't want to be using this effect, because if you did change into the level 3, you've already paid 3 and discarded a card. And if you pay 2 on top of that to bounce something, that's just going to be really intensive, and when you hit level 3, you're going to be lacking in a lot of resources. So don't run the change, but I do advise considering this level 3 Eddie, because she's good. Next up is Kotori. She's 3-2 10k, of course double R as well, music and animal. What she does is if you have 3 or more other music characters, this card gains plus 1k, and the following ability of when this card attacks, choose one of your characters, it gets plus 1k until the end of the turn. And as another effect of on play, or via change, when the damage of this card is cancelled, you may deal 1 to your opponent. So it has a flare trigger. 1 second. Alright, sorry about that. But anyways, this Kotori is a very solid card as well, because she's pretty much 11k base, because to hit her first condition, you only need to have 3 or more music characters in the front. You only need to have 3 or more music characters. That's pretty much going to be all the time at level 3. So she's usually 3 to 11k base, which is pretty good. And also she has a good on attack. You can give one of your characters plus 1k, and that's any character. So you can give the Kotori herself 1k, so she can be 12k on attack. Or you can give another character plus 1k. A good example would be the Nico from the first booster, the 3-2 10k clock shooter Nico. That's a really good card you can give plus 1k power to. So, and she also has Flare Trigger, which is also very good. Yeah, Flare Trigger and big power for 1 turn, or possibly 2 turns, because she's 11k base, makes this Kotori all around a very useful card in my opinion, and definitely helps the end game for Love Live, especially if you're like an English player and you only have the first booster, and when you're receiving the second booster, you don't have the extra booster yet, so you don't have access to the 3-2 double attacker. So definitely consider a couple of these Kotoris, because she's just all around a very solid card, and I personally really like this Kotori. I think she's really, really good. I'm just a big fan of Flare Trigger, to be honest, so a little biased, but definitely a solid card. Once again, she does have a changer as well. This time it's a 2-2 8k music pajamas. What this does is once it's played from hand to stage, during the turn, this card gains plus 1500 power, so she's a 9-5. And lastly, she has a climax phase change, pay 1, discard a card. If you do, change into the level 3 and put it onto the border that she was in. I think this changer is actually not bad at all, to be honest, because okay, the changer herself is pretty stupid because it gets plus 15 on play. Like, who cares about that, because you're going to change anyways on the turn you play her. So the first effect is honestly stupid and pointless. However, when you do change into her, I think you get a lot of uses out of her, because she's 11k base, which makes her very hard to kill, and every time she attacks, you give another character plus 1k, or even herself. And so you can make her 12k, or you can give another one of your characters plus 1k. So at level 2, that's a pretty big deal, because you can make her 12k, or you can pump up one of your level 1s and make them even higher power, helping you gain a stronger board. And the Flare Trigger is not bad at level 2, because it speeds up the game, making your opponent hit level 3 faster. So definitely, if you want to run a 2 to 3 change, and you're not running blue, I would advise this Kotori over something like this Eddie, because all this Eddie does is heal, and she's only 10k base. Unlike this Kotori, where she's 3-2 10k, or she's 3-2 11k base, and she could give more power to your other characters, and she has a flare trigger, which does more than healing at level 2. So definitely like this Kotori, I think it's good. Next up is this Rin. She's 3-2 10k double R music animal. When she's played from hand to stage or via change, you draw 2, discard 1. And she has another effect of when this card attacks, you may pay cost, which is pay 1, discard a card. If you do, choose one of your music characters, and that card gains plus X power and plus soul, where X is equal to that character's level times 1500. So of course you can't really discard a level 0 because you're going to give 0 power and 0 soul. If you discard a level 3, you give plus 4500 power and plus 3 soul, which is kind of a big deal. But anyways, this Rin, it's alright. First of all, draw 2, ditch 1 is okay. It's not the best, it's not the worst. And her on attack is, it has its uses because you can try to, get precise damage via siding. So like if you have a level 1 attacking a level 3, you can use this Rin, because you can target any music character and give it plus X power and plus X soul. So if you wanted to side against that level 3, all you have to do is you have to discard a level 3, and then you gain plus 3 soul, and she'll use 4 soul, and then you can side for 1. But at that point, then it gets plus 4500 power, and it could probably kill the level 1. Actually, this card is honestly whatever. I don't really recommend running this level 3 because it's on attack is like whatever. You can try to do like a surprising amount of damage, but honestly, if your opponent is properly compressed, you're not gonna really like land 5 straight damage in a row. You know what I mean? So don't really recommend this Rin. I've seen a couple players run this, but if you do want to run it, I would only run 2 at max. I think running more than 2 is not really. I don't advise running more than 2, but definitely it has its uses. I don't really like it, but I've seen a couple players run it with some success, so you can consider it. But if you're gonna run it, only run 2, in my opinion, 2 max. Of course, it does have a changer as well, the good old climax phase change, just like all the others. Pay 2, discard 1, and then change into the level 3. However, this one has another effect of you can rest her to give one of your characters plus 1k. So it's a better changer because you can tap it to give one of your characters plus 1k. That way, it does something before it changes at least. However, if you're gonna run blue, because you do have to run blue for this changer, then you might as well be running the 3-2 Maki, to be completely honest, because the 3-2 Maki from the first booster comes out at level 3. You only have to pay 2 for that one to change, and it also draws to ditch 1 just like this Rin. And this Rin, I don't think you're gonna be using her on attack effect too often at level 2. So if you want, I don't advise running the change because you already have Maki from the first booster. So if you do want to run this Rin, I say don't run the change, just run this Rin in 1 or 2, and you should be okay. Next up is Nozomi. She's 3-2 10k double R music. What she does is when she's played from hand to stage, you can look up to the top 6 cards of your deck, choose 3, place them into the waiting room, then place the remaining cards on top of the deck in any order. And then she has another effect of when this card attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If that character is a music character, all your other characters gain plus 1 soul until the end of the turn. This Nozomi is actually very interesting, and she's the first of her. When she was announced, I believe she was the first of her kind, and she's a very interesting, and I think she's pretty good. Pretty much, to look at top 6, you have to look at the top 6, and you have to discard 3, and then you must put 3 back on top in any order. This, as you can imagine, is trigger check. Pretty much perfect trigger checks because you put 3 back on top, you have 3 attacks, thus you get to control your triggers precisely as how you want. And yeah, and that alone is really good because everyone's lost to overswinging just because of a trigger. Like you trigger a double soul, oh they cancel, you lose, or you trigger plus 1 soul, they cancel, you lose. That's happened to everyone. So this Nozomi makes it so that you don't have that problem anymore. You don't overswing, and helps you get precise damage because when she attacks, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a music, which of course you controlled, it gives all your characters plus 1k. I'm sorry, it gives all your characters plus 1 soul. And keep in mind is all your other characters. She herself does not get the soul, and that is pretty good, because if you don't want to give your characters plus 1 soul, all you have to do is attack with her last, and you should be okay. But definitely not bad, because you can attack, give your characters plus 1 soul. Let's say you have 2 other level 3s, now they're all 3 soul, and then you have 2 more triggers on top of your deck, so you could side for 1. If you're assuming you're facing another level 3, side for 1, thus guaranteeing you more precise damage. So situational. There's a lot of different situations where this card can be useful, and I just explained one of them, but definitely a solid card, and I advise running 1 in your deck. I don't advise running more than 2 max. Don't run any more than 2, because at that point it's just going to hurt you. So, but definitely a good tech card and a very viable option in your Love Live builds. Another double R, 3/2 10k double R Hanayo. She's music and animal. What she does is when she's played from hand to stage, you may heal. And she has another effect of during the, so she has a startup where you can pay 1, discard a card. And if you do, she gets plus 2k and the following effect for the turn. When this card battles an opponent and the opponent character becomes reversed, search your deck for up to 1 music character, show it to your opponent, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So first of all, she's a healer, and second of all, her second effect is spammable. So let's say you play her, you heal, you pay 1, you discard a card. She gets plus 2k, so now she's 12k. And then you kill something, you search out 1 character. That's good. However, you can stack this. So let's say you pay 3, discard 3, she gets plus 6k, so now she's 1600. And when she kills something, you search your deck for up to 3 characters and add it to your hand. So this card is all around very, 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 very good, because she heals, and the fact that her second effect is just really good. You can discard climaxes, and in exchange you get to break even, because when she reverses something, you break even because you search out a card in your deck. Because you search out a card in your deck, you compress your deck by more. You compress your deck more, meaning that you have a higher chance to take less damage, is what I'm trying to say. So very solid card, very good card. I would say it's pretty staple. She is probably she's probably the best healer in the set, because she heals. Her second effect is very good, and she's non-climax combo reliant. So a very solid card. I would advise running a couple Hanayos. I would say at least run 2, because she's just really good. You don't need to run 4 Hanayos, because if you're not using her effect, she's pretty much a vanilla healer, but her effect is very good and is used quite often actually. So I would definitely run 2 to 4 Hanayos. I would say 2 to 3 Hanayos. I don't think you need to run 4 Hanayos, but 2 to 3 Hanayos as your healer of choice. You can't go wrong with that in my opinion, so excellent card. And that is all the yellow double R's. As you have seen, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yellow double R's. And now onto the green double R's. The first one here is this Nico, 2/1 AK double R. When this card is played when this card attacks with the climax combo, 2k1, you may pay cost, which is 1, and discard a card. If you do, search your deck for up to 2 music characters, show it to your opponent, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck, and this card gains plus 1k until the end of the turn. This Nico is it's okay. First of all, she's undersized, level 2, but that's because her climax combo is not bad. First of all, it's a 2k1, so the 2k1 is, 2k1 climax is not bad because it breaks even, and it helps you kill characters. And this Nico's climax combo is not bad because it combos with the 2k1, and also the fact that you get to +1, I believe, because she attacks. You discard a card, but you search out 2 more cards. So in total, you plus by 1 card, and also you search out your deck for 2 characters, helping you prep for level 3, and taking away 2 damage in your deck because you searched them out. So compressed by 2, +1, and yeah, very solid climax combo. But still, even though with all that said, she's just honestly meh, because you could be running 8 gates instead of this 2k1 combo. Also, the fact that the climax combo timing is a little awkward because if you don't refresh, or if you refresh, or usually when a person refresh, they refresh mid level 2, early level 2, and if you haven't refreshed yet and you have this climax combo in your hand, when you do climax combo, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it because you can't search out all the cards you want, and that way you don't get much. And compressing 2 in a very small deck isn't going to get you much, honestly. And just like even then, and then even if you like after you refresh and then you want to draw into the 2k1, it might not happen, and it's just honestly just not really worth it. The climax combo is definitely not bad, but you don't feel forced to run this climax combo because honestly you could just run 8 gates and not consider this Nico and you'll pretty much do just fine. So Nico is okay. Her climax combo is not bad because you +1, you compress 2, like I've said, but still, even with all that, it's just not that good. Don't feel forced to run it, is all I'm trying to say. Next up is for the red double R's. First one is Honoka 00500 double R, music and sweets. When she's played from hand to stage, she may play cost, which is discard a climax. If you do, search your deck for up to one character with change as its ability and show it to your opponent and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is pretty much an exact copy of the level 0 Maki in the first booster, the double R one. Exact copy. And honestly, that Maki is pretty bad. Nobody runs that Maki. So, and with that said, why would you run this Honoka? It's an exact copy. It's just in red. It's pretty cute though because she's in her cheerleader outfit, but still, don't run it. Yeah, don't run it. Next up, the next double R 2-1 4K double R. She's a 1K in front support, and what she does is when she's played from hand to stage, you can pay cost, which is pay 1, discard a card. If you do, choose one character from your waiting room and add it to your hand. And this Umi is pretty lackluster. Because first of all, she's only a 1k assist in front. She's not even a global or a level assist, so that in itself is very lackluster. And her on play is lackluster as well because on play you have to pay 1, discard a card. So you don't plus because you have to discard a card, and then all you get is you get to salvage a character. Yeah, just lackluster card in general. Weak support and a weak on play. So honestly, don't run it. It's a shame that red has crappy double arbs, but what can you do? Next up, the next double R is the blue one, 1k double R. Music and Noble Daughter. She's a assist, so she's all your characters from this get plus 500 plus X power, where X is equal to the number of characters with assist times 500. And next she has another effect of when you use change, and this card isn't stand, you may pay cost, which is pay 1, rest this. If you do, search your deck for one music character, add it to your hand. Then shuffle your deck. This Maki is very lackluster as well, because she's very undersized, so she is still susceptible to Wing Slayer. She costs 1, and she's a support, meaning it's just not very good because the best support in Love Live is the 1-0 global Umi support in the first booster, and because she's global, she doesn't have the support text, meaning that if you use this card in conjunction with the Umi, you don't get the full value of it because it's just a 500 support at that point. And then, like, honestly, just that fact alone makes this card pretty unplayable, and the fact that, like, even its other effect, the auto effect, is just not that good. If you want this other effect, just run the 1-0 Kotori assist from the first booster. The first booster Kotori effect is a lot better because that one's global and costless, while this Umi costs 1 and doesn't even work well with the Umi from the first booster. So in general, this card is just really bad. And that is all the double R's, I believe. That's a total of 9 double R's, 6 in yellow, 1 in green, 2 in red, and 1 in blue. My bad, that's 10 double R's. So 10 double R's total. And yeah, with that out of the way, now we can go on to more notable cards that aren't double R. This card is okay, not staple, but I think it's definitely something you can consider. It's a 00500 Maki. She's R and she's music, and what she does is if you have another character that's level 3 or higher, this card gains +1 soul, and it's only a 1k backup at level 0. This card seems really lackluster because it's only a 1k assist, and this card only gains +1 soul if you have a level 3 or higher. But having access to a costless 2 soul beater is actually pretty good. Because like let's say you use this in conjunction with a 2 to 3 changer or a level 3 that can come out early. A prime example is the level 3 Maki from the first booster. If you play that, you usually have pretty good board control at that point, field control at that point, and you're pushing for a lot of damage because you have an early level 3 at level 2. If you put this Maki on top of that, you can really push your opponent to level 3 or even just end the game much faster than they expect it to. And at worst, it's a 1k backup, but at best, it's a costless it's a costless 2 soul beater, and it may not sound like much, but it's kind of a big deal. Sometimes this card can be quite a nuisance for your opponent, and yeah, just something to consider. Definitely not mandatory. Not don't force yourself to run this card. Not mandatory, but if you have some space left in level 0 and you want to try out something new, try out something wonky, then try out this Maki, and I don't think you can go wrong with it. Next up is No Brand Girl Hanayo. She's 106KR music. What she does is when she's played from hand to stage, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is not a music character, at the beginning of your Encore phase, place this card into waiting room. This card is meh, and there's better 1-0 options in the form of the 1-0 Eddie from the first booster. But this card does have its merit because you don't need a full field for this card to hit 6k power. Unlike the Eddie, usually sometimes the Eddie is only 4 or 5 base, and she gets 500 per music. So for her to hit 6k, you need to have at least 3 characters on the field. And sometimes you just can't do that, or sometimes you just don't want to commit that many cards in the field. However, this Hanayo is always 6k. She's costless, and her on play is not that bad. Like early into the game, she's a 6k beater, and late into the game, she's a free trigger check for you. Not bad card, honestly. If you don't want to invest into those Eddies from the first booster, because she's quite expensive. Last time I checked, she was like $10 to $15. I'm not too sure if it's raised or dropped, but still a fairly expensive card. So if you're getting into the game via the second booster, or just getting into Love Live via the second booster, you can consider this Hanayo, because it's not bad. Why did I pull up this Zine? This Zine is okay. I guess I'll talk about it since I have it up already. This Zine is 1045 music. When she's played from hand to stage, during this turn, this card gains plus X power, where X is the number of music characters you control by 500. And lastly, she has another effect of on a startup pay 1, this card gains +1 soul. Zine is honestly not bad either, because she can hit pretty high power for costless. She gets 500 per music character on the field, including herself. So if you play her last and you have a full field, that's 2-5 power, I believe. So she'll be 7k on offense for no cost, which is pretty good because the Eddies can only hit 6-5 before assist, but this Rin can hit 7k before assist, and that extra 500 power can actually help you in a lot of situations. So this Rin, not a bad attacker as well. If you're gonna run this Rin, you could run 1 or 2, and can't go wrong with that in my opinion. She also has an okay startup. You can pay 1 to give this card +1 soul. Not to be underestimated, because sometimes you just can't pay out a climax deep in your stock. So you could use this Rin, and you could give her more soul, and you could help pay out climaxes, because Love Live's level 1 game is usually costless. So sometimes if you attack 3 times, let's say the first attack you did, you triggered a climax, and the next 2 attacks you weren't a climax. Next turn, assuming you are still level 1, you're going to have a pretty difficult time paying out that climax that you first triggered, because you have to go through 3 climaxes. Love Live's level 1 is usually very costless, so like you're going to brainstorm. You paid out 1, but at that point, not a lot of Love Live decks have access to paying out the other 2 climaxes, and if they do have a way to do so, it's usually not very good. So this Rin is not bad. I've tried her out, and she actually has helped me in some situations. Like a very good example is just what I used. That's the prime example of when I found this Ring to be useful, because she hits high power on play, and also like you can pay out a climax that's deep that I usually can't get out in my Love Life deck just because it's so costless, and she gets +2 soul, so she's 3 soul for the turn. And if you use her before your opponent refreshes first, that's usually when they're most decompressed, meaning that you have a high chance of the 3 damage to stick through. And if the damage does stick through, then that pushes you far ahead by quite a lot. So, Rin, not the best card, but something to consider. If you do want to run the Rin, I don't advise running 4. I would run 2 or 3. 3 at max is what I would run. But Rin, not bad card at all. But don't feel forced to run it because Eddie's better, but she does have her uses. Next up is this 1165 Clock Encore Kotori. That's all she is, music and nurse. The reason I pulled this out is because Love Live doesn't have a Clock Encore in the first booster, so in the second booster, this is the first Clock Encore in the set, and it's a very solid one. It's a 1165 with Clock Encore. Can't go wrong with it, and usually it's usually 7/5 with the right field setup, usually 2 Umis in the back or an assist of some form and a global 500 Umi in the back. Usually 1175 with Clock Encore. Not bad at all. And when the second booster was out, when Japan only had access to the first and second booster, I ran a couple of these Kotoris and I found a lot of success with this card. So yeah, only an uncommon, so definitely a solid uncommon, and I would definitely consider running 1 or 2 of these Kotoris, because Clock Encore, can't go wrong. Next up is this 2145 Hanayo. She's uncommon. She's music. She's level assist in front, and she has another effect of when one of your characters triggers a climax, choose one of your characters and gets +1 soul. The reason why this card's really good is because in the first booster, the only level assist they had was in green, and so if you want to run yellow, red, blue, you didn't have a level assist, which really sucked because late game your characters were just really low power. But now they have a new level assist and it's in yellow, and yellow being the main color for Love Live. Now every Love Live build has access to a level assist, and that in itself makes this Hanayo really good. And also her second effect is actually really good as well, because when your character triggers a climax, you could give any character +1 soul. Giving the +1 soul is actually a pretty big deal because you can, help you get precise damage. It helps you push for extra damage when it's not expected. And in general, just the ability to give any of your characters +1 soul is really, really good. And I really do like this Hanayo. I think she's awesome. So definitely a very good uncommon card as well. Right? I believe it's uncommon. It's so small. Yes, uncommon. Very solid uncommon. Good job, Hanayo. On to green. Next up is a 00500 uncommon Eddie. She's a 500 in front assist. Oh, she's using a student council. 500 in front assist, and she has another effect of on play. You can place the top 3 cards of your deck into the waiting room. It may not sound like much. I underestimated this card at release, or when this card was first released, I did underestimate this card. However, now I am in love with this card. I think this card is amazing. It's super good. First of all, it's a 500 assist. It's not bad, it's not the greatest, but still, 500 assist is really good. And her mill 3 on play is just fantastic. It's a free brainstorm essentially. It's like Operation Tornado, free brainstorm, and that in itself is just super awesome. If you play it right, you can really compress your deck by just an insane amount, and just using multiple of these in conjunction allows you to brainstorm, or just allows you to mill through your deck really fast, and allows you to compress a lot. And it's a little hard to explain, but this card is just really amazing. Give it a shot. If you're running green, I definitely advise giving it a shot. And even if you're not running green, you could run a couple, because this card is just amazing. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic card. And it's only uncommon too, so really cheap. Pick up a couple for yourself, because I think this card is awesome. Next up is for red. We have this 00 Suicider. It's a 1500 R Umi. When this card becomes reversed and the battle opponent is level 0 as well, reverse that character. Another effect of pay 1, choose one of your opponent's character in the front row that's level 0 and place it into the waiting room. This Umi is not bad. First of all, she's a level 0 Suicider, which is already very playable in its own right. And next up, her next effect is not bad because pay 1, kill opponent character in the front row. Definitely don't want to be spamming this effect because you're wasting stock to kill level 0s. Not a lot of merit to that, but it does have its uses at times because first turn, if you trigger a climax, sometimes you just don't have a way to pay that out, and so that's why this Umi is here for you to pay out that climax. So this Umi allows you a good way to pay out climaxes at level 0, and she's a level 0 Suicider, so in general, solid card, and the art is really cute. So, good card. More red cards. First of all, is this 2/1 AKR Kotori. She's music. What she does is when this card attacks, and if you have Wonderful Rush in the climax zone, you may pay cost, which is 1, and discard a card. If you do, deal 1 to your opponent, and this card gains plus 2k until the end of the turn. Wonderful Rush, I'm sure many of you guys do know, because a lot of you guys probably bought a TD if you guys are interested in Love Live. Wonderful Rush is 2 soul climax in the TD, but in the second booster, it is also a gate. And since Love Life now has another gate, Love Life now has access to 8 gates, which is really good. And since you're going to be, most Love Live players, I should say, do run 8 gates. So if you're going to run 4 Wonderful Rush and 4 the TD gates, if you're running 4 gates, you can consider some of these Kotoris because it's not bad. She's pretty much burn 1 by, when you play the climax, you could burn 1 by paying a card, discard a card. Not the greatest because it's heavy, but not the worst because if you're running 4 gates, you can consider 1 or 2 of these Kotoris. Can't really go wrong with it. Just optional extra game ender that you can consider. Not mandatory, definitely not mandatory. Don't feel forced to run this card because you're running 8 gates. Or if you're running the 4 Wonderful Rush gates, don't feel forced to run this card because you could still win without this card, but just something to consider. Next up is this other Kotori card. She's 001k uncommon music. When your other character becomes reversed, choose one of your characters. It gets plus 1k until the end of the turn. And she has another effect of pay 1, place the top card of your opponent's deck into the waiting room, then choose 1 card in your opponent's waiting room and place it on top of the deck. This card is just awesome. I really do like this card. I think it's great. This card alone has won me a lot of games, and it's just great. Her first effect is definitely not bad. A lot of players do seem to forget her first effect, and sometimes it makes them mess up because it can make difficult situations for your opponent because they might have to attack in certain orders, and if they mess up, they can't reverse a certain character they wanted to reverse, or it just puts them in situations where they can't reverse all your characters because of this Kotori. So her first effect is definitely not bad, and her second effect is just really awesome because you usually use the second effect at late game. Usually when your opponent is level 3 is when I play this Kotori. When your opponent's level 3, you play this level 0 Kotori. You pay 1, you place the top card of your opponent's deck into the waiting room. If that card was a climax, you get to put a card in that waiting room back on top. Of course, you're going to put a character back on top, making it so they have 1 less cancel because they pretty much lost 1 cancel because you paid 1 and you put a climax in the waiting room, and in return, you put a character back on top. And that in itself is just like super good. Denying your opponent 1 cancel is a huge deal at level 3. And also the fact that you can guarantee yourself a character is on top is just icing on the cake. Also, the fact that even if you pay 1 and you don't hit a climax, it's good to know that the next card on top is still going to be a character, and that way it helps you plan to do precise damage accordingly. Usually what you put back on top of the deck is a level 3 that your opponent controls, usually something that's a really good salvage target, like let's say a level 3 healer. You put their healer back on top, that way when you attack, the character that you put back on, the level 3 you put back on top is now on their clock, making it that much harder for them to get that card back via salvaging. They'll have to use other methods to get their level 3 back, so in general, just a very, very solid card. If you have extra space if you have extra space in your level 0, I would recommend this Kotori. I would recommend running one of this Kotori because if you do manage to space, because she's awesome. Oh, oops. Why do I have this extra gate? On to blue. First of all, it's a 0025 Rin. She's music and sweets. At the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, you can pay 1. If you do, move her to an empty slot in the front row. And this card is really meh, very lackluster. It's a runner. It's a situational runner because you have to pay 1 for you to run. However, it does have its uses. Blue for Love Live is pretty weak. It's its weakest color, I would say. But it does have some pretty decent cards. So it can be a little difficult to splash blue in your Love Live decks because the level 0s are very lackluster. But this lean is not bad. If you do want to run blue in your Love Live decks and you need more blue level 0s, you should consider running this lean because she's kind of wonky, kind of funny, kind of stupid. But definitely not bad because first turn you can play the lean, attack. If you trigger a climax, good for you. You guaranteed yourself the run, and that itself is a big deal. And late game, even like mid to late game, if your last attack was a climax, you can just pay the 1 and have her move, and you paid it out. And let's say late game, you have a Rin in the front row, and you have an empty slot. Your opponent has a clock shooter. It's gonna make it like difficult for them to clock shoot because the Rin can run somewhere else, and also they might just forget that the Rin can actually run. So definitely a solid blue card. Not the best, but Love Live's level 0 blues aren't that great, so this Rin is a prime contender to fill up your blue count. Oh, did I mess up the order? Well, my bad. A green card. 00, 1500, uncommon. Nozomi, she's 1500, music and fortune telling. This card is nothing special. When it's played from hand to stage, you can pay cost, so just pay 1, discard a card. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 music character, show it to your opponent, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. Love Live already has a generic searcher in the 00 Kotori in the first booster, but I mentioned this card because this card is green, and for Love Live it's really easy to splash in yellow into your deck because yellow has so many good cards. It's the main color for Love Live, but now they have a searcher in green, and if you wanted to add more green to your deck, the level 0s for green is not that great. So instead of running the 00 yellow Kotori, you could use the green Nozomi because it adds more green to your deck because it's harder to have more green count than yellow count. So that's why I mentioned this Nozomi. If you're running green, I would advise running this Nozomi over the Kotori just because it increases your green count because it's just super easy to have a lot of yellows in your deck. So that's why I mentioned it. Not the greatest card, or it's nothing special, I should say. We don't need to explain this. Actually, I guess I will. Guess I messed up a little in the order, but I will explain it now. Oops. Too many tabs. Oh, there we go. This Hanayo that I mentioned earlier does have a changer, a level 0 changer. It's a 002K. This Hanayo does change into this. During your opponent's turn, this card gains plus 1K, so it's a 3K at level 0. But what it does, it's a climax phase change into the level 0. The cost is discard a card, and then you change into level 0, or you change into level 1. Because the level 1 is played from the waiting room, you don't have the demerit of the chance of this card killing itself. If you're gonna run this Hanayo, you can consider running a couple of the changers. It's kind of like how the old Eddy changer worked. There's the level 0 clock changer into the level 1 Eddy changer. This one is pretty viable because of the fact that it's costless and the fact that you have to discard a card to change. So if you drew into this Hanayo, then you can easily change into the level 1 because you could discard the Hanayo, then change into the Hanayo, making it very easy to do if you do draw the card, unlike the clock one. And yeah, at worst, this is a 2K on offense and a 3K on defense. So if you're running the Hanayo, you can consider a couple of the changers. I personally wouldn't do it, but I've seen a couple players do it, and it can be pretty annoying if you do successfully get it off at level 1. It can really push you far ahead, so something to consider, but don't feel forced to do it. And the last blue card. that I'm going to mention is this 002K Hanayo. She's music and animal. What she does is when she's played from hand to stage, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a music character, add it to your hand, then discard a card. Um, Definitely not a bad card. It's 2K, which is not that great, but it is a nice hand filter because you could play it. You reveal top, you add it to your hand, then discard a card. Usually you add it to your hand, then discard a card. Not bad. If you don't hit a character, then you know what you're going to trigger. And if you do hit a character, then you get a free filter out of it for free. And it's in blue, and like I said, it can be a little difficult to splash blue into your decks. So if you want to add more blue cards, perhaps more blue utility cards, I should say, you can consider this Hanayo because she's definitely not bad and a pretty solid card in her own right. And that is all the cards that I think are worthwhile in the second Love Live Booster School Idol Festival. Um, I could be forgetting a couple cards, but in general, I do think these are the best cards I've mentioned. A little summary, I guess, about the second booster. The second booster isn't amazing. It didn't change the deck too far. The base is still, Eddie, Umi, level 1s. The level 3 Nico is really good still. But still, the second booster did give a lot of good level 3s. The Nozomi's really good. The Hanayo's really good. The Kotori's really good. And the Eddie is not bad at all. The level 0 Suicider. The Umi Suicider is good. And the Clock Encore is great. The level assist is great. And this Eddie is really good. So, and this Kotori is cool too. So in general, not a bad booster at all. Very solid. If you do want to buy boxes, I think you get away without buying boxes for this set because a lot of these cards are not that great. The R's in this set are pretty lackluster. The best R's in this set is probably the Suicider, and I think that's it. That's probably the best R. The other double R's, the Eddie, the Kotori, the Hanayo are probably the best double R's in the set. The Nozomi is good. You only have to buy one though, I would say. So, if you're an English player and you're looking to buy the set, keep your eye out for the Eddie, the Kotori, the Nozomi, the Hanayo, the Eddies, the Umis, and that's really it. Like I said, a lot of the R's are lackluster. The best cards are double R's, and a lot of the other cards I've mentioned are either uncommons or commons. So yeah, and now I guess that's all I have to say for this video. If you have any question or comments, like I said, do leave them below. If you have a question on a certain card, leave it below, and I'll answer why I didn't mention it or what I do think about the card. And yeah, if you do like I said, if you like this format better, where we use the internet, so that way you can read the card effects alongside with us, let us know. Or if you like the way we did it before, where we used our real cards, like I said, do leave that in the comments below. And I've talked about for long enough. My throat is going sore, so I'll leave it at this. And until next time, guys.